Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rox. And this is
Literature on the Rocks.
Hey-o.
Party over here. Ooh, ooh. Party over there. Ooh, ooh.
We are so musical
You
today. It's
are,
great.
I know,
there's
there's
so
a
much
lot.
songs today.
I love it.
I did start watching a show about book publishing.
Oh,
You
yeah?
did?
Yes.
That sounds like the best show ever.
Sounds right up our alley.
I'm riveted already.
Call me
That's all I
Rosie.
got. That's all I got for you. I'm just kidding.
She's like, I turned it off after 30 seconds. I got
It
through
was
the title
boring.
page.
Yeah. It's 7 seasons and
Holy
but
shit.
it's like a series. Like
I got that,
not
but-
a documentary.
Oh, is it with Hillary Duff?
Yes.
Yes.
It's really
Younger.
cute. Younger. Yes.
Younger.
It's really cute.
It's about this lady who is older.
Like in
and
her 40s.
She's trying to get back into...
Yeah, so she had a daughter. She stopped working to raise her daughter, and now her daughter's going off to college, so she wants to go back to work. And initially, her career was in publishing. She went to school for it and had a long career in it. So she tried to get interviews, and they wouldn't hire her because she was too old
Protected
without
class.
actually saying that she was too old,
yeah.
right? Or she had been out of the game for too long or whatever. And so she lied on her resume and said that she had just gotten out of college and she was 26 years old. They hired her
got
right
the
away.
job.
She got the job. So now the story is she's working for this book publisher as a 26-year-old. That's the series.
Oh, yeah,
but
she's
it's
totally...
it's
But,
really
like, Hillary
good.
Duff-
But you get an insight into book publishing,
little
and I
bit
thought
about
it was kind of
publishing.
cool.
Is it?
Yeah.
I like it, and I think I'm on like season 5.
Recommending it?
Recommending it.
All
right.
right. Putting it on my TBW.
I was waiting.
said TBV,
I
like
was gonna
to be
say,
viewed.
Yes, that's what I was gonna
Oh,
say.
TBV. And I have
Yeah.
TV watched. TV watched.
Yes, to be watched. Oh, that makes sense too.
Yeah, to be consumed.
We have a TBC, to be consumed. Those are both books and movies
Yes.
and TV shows.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
Anything
our
that you
TBC.
consume. A
It's-
pizza.
Yeah, I was just gonna say food.
That's where I went to.
Nice.
Oh,
Well, let's
man.
get into the book this week. What do you think?
Yeah, tell them what it is.
The book is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. All right, One Dark Window is by Rachel Gillig. Rachel Gillig is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author, celebrated for her immersive and atmospheric fantasy novels. She was born and raised in California coast.
Oh.
Like in the water, she was born and raised.
On the La Jolla Cliffs next to the sea lions. That's where she was born.
We only tell you guys factual information, so you heard
The
it here.
tadpoles is where she spent most of her time.
That reminded me of
Some
Fresh
people
Prince of
outside the pool. School, not pool. Oh, outside the pool.
Yeah, she holds a BA in literary theory and criticism. That's the thing, literary theory and criticism from University of UC Davis. In addition,
I feel like I have an honorary degree in criticism.
I feel like, yeah, that fits.
graduated summa cum laude.
Fuck yeah.
In addition to her writing career, Rachel is also a teacher.
And her name's Rachel. Are we
Yeah.
talking about you?
Yeah.
I am a teacher.
When she's not crafting her next novel, she enjoys spending time in her garden and taking walks with her husband, son, and their poodle, Wally. Her debut novel is One Dark Window.
Oh,
And
another
This
one
was
with.
a debut novel?
Yes, it was.
Wow.
It does make it more impressive.
Oh, okay. Debut novel, and it's the first installment of the Shepherd King series. It earned widespread acclaim for its gothic, folklore-inspired storytelling. The novel's a loose retelling of Alfred Noy's poem, The Highwayman, demonstrating
I did not know that.
demonstrating Rachel's ability to weave classic literature into her narratives. The book's haunting magic system, inspired by tarot cards, grants power at a cost, further enriching the dark and intricate world she creates. Rachel also draws inspiration from visual art, notably Henry Fuseli's 1781 painting The Nightmare, which helped shape the eerie presence of the nightmare in One Dark Window.
She's drawn from all kinds of
her
classic.
It
Go ahead.
makes sense because her BA is in literary theory, and
yeah.
so she's pulling from like the art.
All I heard was
and-
criticism, and that's
Me too.
I thought these were really cool facts considering how she's pulling them from her study, right?
Right.
Yes.
Way to put that degree to work, girl.
Right. Yeah. Her love for folklore, classic literature, and gothic aesthetics shines through in her work, creating deeply atmospheric tales that resonate with readers. So beyond writing, Rachel is an avid gardener. She's also highly engaged with her audience on social media, particularly on TikTok. She does have another novel coming out in May of 2025. It's called The Night and the Moth, and it's the first book in what's called the Stonewater Kingdom series. And that is Rachel Gillig.
That was good.
Literature on the
Thank you.
Rocks is
Lots of
mind-blowing, too.
tidbits that I am surprised by.
Honestly, it really doesn't change my perspective of the book, but hit us with a book summary.
Okay, the summary of One Dark Window is a gothic-inspired fantasy novel filled with magic, mystery, and romance. The story follows Elspeth Spindle, a young woman who lives in a mist-shrouded kingdom where a magical deck of Providence cards grants rare and dangerous abilities to those who possess them. However, the magic comes at a cost, and Elspeth knows this firsthand. After an encounter with an ancient, sinister force, she carries a secret burden, a mysterious presence in her mind that grants her power, but also threatens to consume her. When she becomes entangled with a rogue band of rebels seeking to break the kingdom's curse, Elsbeth must navigate treacherous alliances, dark magic, and her own growing fears about the entity within her. With an eerie atmosphere, lush world building, and a gripping romance, One Dark Window is a spellbinding tale about destiny, power, and the thin line between good and evil. Perfect for fans of dark fantasy, gothic storytelling, the novel blends intrigue and emotion into a hauntingly beautiful adventure.
Good job.
Dun, dun,
Nice.
dun.
Well done.
I will say, for all of you diehard fantasy lovers out there, we are not that. We
Well-
love a good fantasy book, but we're not looking for theories. We're not picking apart a fantasy book.
Especially rocks.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're not deep diving into all of the intricate pieces of the
Yes.
book and all of their segues.
We are
Yes.
just moms who like to read.
Right.
And we just like a good story.
So we're going to tell you about One Dark Window, but we're not going to dive into it like other people, right? I don't think it's our...
We're not doing myth and legends and all of that.
I'd like to
didn't.
think that we are just three regular readers
Yes.
who
Yes.
just like to dabble in all the themes.
All the genres.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're dabbling.
So this is our dabble. I am OCD, and so anything I start, I usually have to finish. I'm working on it, right? There's like only one book in my life that I've ever
Didn't finish.
DNF'd. I still haven't even officially put it in that category. I still would like to finish it.
I know the
I
book.
have one that's like that too.
I do too, actually.
Okay, well, what is your book that you DNF'd and still want to go back
Song
to?
of Achilles. Oh. I could not get through
That
it.
was your wreck too.
Yes.
Yes.
I could not for the life
Yeah,
of
it was.
me.
Yeah.
It was rough. And it's definitely a DNF. I'm not going back.
I did
and
finish
it was
it,
critically
but I pushed
acclaimed.
myself to finish it. Yes,
Yeah.
it's well written, but it's not my vibe.
No.
Mine
about
was
you?
The Hacienda. It is a creepy, spooky book, and I do like the premise of the story. I think as we read all these different genres and different book types, I am learning about what
Yeah.
specific, because like in fantasy and romantasy, there's so many different things.
Yeah.
And I'm learning more about what I prefer in
Yeah.
a fantasy book or in a book in general. And I don't think gothic is it for me. Because The Hacienda is a gothic Mexican story, and I do like the premise and the story is good, but I think the twist and the gothicness of it, it's
The
not
darkness of it.
But it's not even that. We'll get into it at the
Work
end.
on the words.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Work on words.
I'm curious about the gothic part. Like, what
Okay.
about it you
I
don't
don't
like?
know what it means to be a gothic novel. Is it just like Renaissance?
I don't know.
Renaissance-y?
I have
don't know
no
either.
idea.
Okay.
I just picture dark eyeliner and black.
yeah.
No.
Listens to a lot of My Chemical Romance.
Yes.
The Black Parade is coming through.
Exactly.
All right, well, while you think of the words.
A gothic
Oh.
book is a piece of literature characterized by elements of darkness, mystery, horror, and suspense, often featuring haunting settings, supernatural occurrences, themes like death, decay, and macabre.
But that's not the part that you
Macabre.
dislike about it, because you like those things in a book.
No, I do. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what it is then. I don't know.
That's okay. So my book that I have not officially DNF'd but am not finishing is Devil in the White City. It is the true story of H.H. Holmes, the serial killer. But every word in it, and it tells you this is made to be told like a story. So it's pulled anything that's like, oh, they said this. It is truly, you can look it up and it is a quote from like a newspaper or some sort of article that was published about it. Everything in it is actual factual. There's a lot in there about like the architecture of how they built the World Fair in
Oh, yeah,
Chicago
yeah.
and what was going on in Chicago. Even though it's meant to be told like a story, there's so much of that I couldn't get past it. It was recommended to me very highly by some people I really respect. So I think that's part of the reason why I don't want to DNF it either.
All right, let's get about this cocktail.
I know, I'm so
can't
excited
wait
to
to
drink
taste
it.
it.
About it. This cocktail, because we are going to be talking about One Dark Window, one of the characters, the nightmare, speaks in rhymes. And so here's a little rhyme for you. Sip too deep and hands grown cold. The nightmare's grasp is sure and bold. Ice will melt, sweet yet true. Drink, my dear, the brew wants you.
Whoa, that
You can
was
call
good.
me Penguin Publishing. Thanks.
That was good.
So it is an espresso cocktail. We're calling it the Nightmare's Brew, and it is a scoop of vanilla ice cream or two, depending on your liking, a shot of hot espresso, an ounce of coffee liqueur, we did Kahlua, and an ounce of peanut butter whiskey, we did Screwball. You can top it with whipped cream or cinnamon or nutmeg or whatever, chocolate shavings. We kept it simple. Cheers, bitches.
Cheers.
Yes.
You know what this reminds me of?
A boozy milkshake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like a
Ooh.
like an espresso martini, like a rum version of an espresso
yeah.
martini. It's good.
Oh my God. This.
I'm sorry, we can't do this book summary today. We'll be eating ice cream, boozy ice cream.
Yeah, essentially.
Oh yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, that is so good.
Recommend.
All right, let's get into these.
Yeah, let's get into
chumpizzles.
these chumpies.
Okay, so moving forward, there will be spoilers. I don't know if there's a whole lot of
Trigger warnings?
trigger
a fantasy
warnings.
book.
Yeah.
It's fantasy, the standard.
It ain't real.
The tale begins with Elspeth recalling when she was 9 years old, and the current Rowan King's physician comes looking for infected children at her Aunt Opal and Uncle Tiernan Hawthorne's home. Elspeth was asleep at the window, which her aunt runs to her. So these physicians come in, they're looking for infected children. Elspeth's Aunt Opal runs to her and she's like, "You must leave. Go, run. Like they're coming for you." And it says gently, but she pushes her out a fucking window.
I imagined it was a ground floor,
Yes, it
like
wasn't-
garden window.
Yes.
She
but
fell
still,
into the rose bushes.
She falls and she doesn't land on the grass. She hits her head on something hard and she's bleeding. And so now she's kind of going in and out of consciousness, trying to get away from the physicians and into the forest covered by safety. And so she's trying to get, for the first time, hears a voice in her head telling her she needs to get up and run, but she can't, because she's obviously concussed. And so she asks for help, whoever is talking to me in my head, right? And the next time she wakes up, it's in the safety of the forest. We skip to 11 years later. Elspeth and her cousin Ione are traveling through the kingdom of Blunder, which has been cut off from the rest of the world because of this mist, which we'll get into. On her way to her father's, Eric Spindle's house, she lives with her aunt and uncle, and she's going to visit her dad for her namesake's day.
her
yeah.
birthday.
Yeah, I'm
They
gonna
don't
call it
say
my
that.
namesake's day every year.
Oh! As they're walking to Eric Spindle's house, they avoid screams. They hear screams coming from the town square, and it's due to physicians and the destriers, which destriers are basically the king's soldiers, and they are seeking infected, but they make it to the Spindle house without being seen. Elspeth was infected. She was infected at 9 years old, which is why her aunt's pushing her out a window to get away from the physicians.
And why she lives with her aunt.
Yes.
Because the physicians come and they take you away.
They get to the house. We meet her father, just like any good fantasy, her evil stepmother.
Seriously, fuck that bitch.
And two half sisters, which I think they're twins. Miriam is the stepmom, and the half sisters are Naya and Demia. Her father comes, and it's the first time we kind of see that Elspeth has some sort of magical something. She could see the glowing Providence card floating towards her before she can even see her dad, shining blue in his pocket. And he comes and he gives her the flowers. He is like, "Let's go eat. Food is ready." And even Miriam makes a comment like, "Oh, we were going to meet you in the hall." And he pushes back to her like, "Is it not okay for me to see my own daughter in my own house?" And it's one of the first times that her dad has really stuck up for her since she's gotten the
Sent away.
infection. Yeah. As he leaves to go have food, he says something about being invited to Equinox. And Miriam basically is telling Elspeth, she's like passive aggressive, but very aggressive. So she says, basically, you're not allowed to come. You're not welcome there. Makes it clear that she doesn't want her to
Yeah,
be
there's
there.
no place for you in this family.
Yeah, like the arrangement we've made with your uncle is working. You stay over there and we pay them handsomely to take care of you. And then you come every once in a while and you're an annoyance, right?
Yeah.
And Elspeth ends up leaving without telling anyone. She's arguing with a nightmare in her head and he wants her to stay to spite Miriam, but she does look behind her to see if her cousin is followed, but Ione does not follow her. Elspeth walks through the forest to Hawthorne Estate, clutching her charm, which is a crow's foot, which we'll get into what the charms are. But right now, you don't know because it's a fantasy. Just
None
keep
of us
reading.
know.
Elspeth recalls how the nightmare actually came to live in her mind, which was one night after her fever had broke, she spied on her Uncle Tiernan, who had this like bloody sword. He had just come back from the forest and he had 2 Providence cards in his hand. One of them was the nightmare card, which as you go, you learn from about the Providence cards. There's 12 of them, but 78 in total, 12 different ones. And the nightmare card is very rare, but it grants telepathy. The young Elspeth touches the unattended card and she faints. She wakes to the nightmare manifested in her mind. When she wakes up, she can feel that she's not alone in this library and she hears clicking. She realizes it's coming from her mind. He doesn't haunt her as the old Book of Alders suggested. Instead, it makes her stronger and faster. So every Providence card allows you to use magic, but it also comes with a cost. And the cost of the nightmare card is nightmares and it's your worst fears. You start to live your worst fears. So she's expecting to feel those things and that doesn't happen. It's so whatever's in her mind, it's not haunting her. It's just there right now.
Because everybody who gets infected shows some sort of magic, and hers is the ability.
They either die or they
they
come
pull
out
through.
on the other side with some sort of magic.
Yes, and hers is to.
She assumed by this point that there is no magic in her. She's gotten away unscathed. What a lucky biatch she is. But then she touches this nightmare card. She realizes she can absorb something from these cards, but now it's living in her brain and living in her mind. It's not so much that it like imbues her with power, but it does.
But it does when she asks him to take over. Well,
But it's not imbuing. It's like the nightmare
he's
is
the
taking
power.
over.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's the power.
and she just lets him out.
Yeah.
She's going through the forest, and Elspeth is attacked by 2 highwaymen, one of whom uses a dagger with an ivory hilt. She pretends to be a maid at her uncle's estate. They press her about her uncle's Providence cards. She's having a conversation with the nightmare at this point. These guys are coming. What do I do? And he's like, lie. And she tells him a different name. Tell them we have nothing on you of that would do you any good. And she's like, no, for what? For them to just start taking over my body and finding something that's worthy of their time?
Right.
So she tells him, I'm a maid and I'm heading over to my master Hawthorne's house to go work. And they're like, oh, Hawthorne is who you're employed by? Then you must know about his cards. Stealing Providence cards is forbidden. It is one of the highest laws of the land that you should not break. It's punishable by death. And so they clearly don't care about whatever is coming their way if they are willing to potentially steal her uncle's cards. That's when she decides to call on the nightmare and basically says, help me. It takes over her body. She strikes the highwaymen and she manages to run home. The next morning, the Hawthorns receive an invitation to the equinox celebration. Her uncle plans to exchange his nightmare card and pay the family's debt and negotiate other benefits. So they're like, we could go to equinox at the king's castle, or it is estate. And Ione's all excited about it. What'd you say?
Chateau.
Ione's excited about equinox and going to the king's estate, but the mom's like, well, we owe some money. We've got lots of debt and we shouldn't go because it was a poor year and the king's after everything he's owed. And the dad's like, let me show you my nightmare card that I've been hiding for 11 years. Elspeth doesn't want to go. And they make like a comment about, oh, you can go see Alex. And she tells her aunt, like, I don't want to see Alex. He was just someone to kiss.
Yeah. She hadn't been to the equinox in many years.
Yeah. And the last time she felt embarrassed about it. And she's like, she avoids these things because she knows that she had the infection and people will ask questions. Weren't you living with your dad, who was the captain of the Destriers? And like, why did he send you away? And she doesn't want all those questions. She doesn't want to have to answer them.
And
so she avoids.
She's scared that because she doesn't think she has magic. So she's scared her magic is just gonna like flare up in front of the king.
She knows she has a nightmare and she's like, I don't know what it all does.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She doesn't want it to flare up in front of him. And she has black veins on her arms.
Yes.
That show that she was infected.
Which is everyone that gets infected and comes out with magic.
They're marked.
While they're talking about this card, she kind of goes into an explanation of what what these 78 Providence cards are, how they were made 500 years ago. There was a shepherd king, and he would go into the forest. So the spirit lived in the forest, and you could go to the spirit and you can ask for magic, but it only would allow certain people, like if you were worthy of magic, and it all came at a cost. So she favored the shepherd king, and the shepherd king had quite a bit of magic. He was pretty powerful. And since he had been favored, the shepherd king asks the spirit, I want to share this magic with everyone. I want it to be available. So he starts making these cards. They make 12 of them in total, and each one is more rare than the other. So the first one they make, I think it's like the Black Knight card or something, the Black Horse card. There's 12 of them. And then the next one, there's 11. And then the next one, there's 10. All the way up until the Nightmare, there's 2. And then there's 1 Twin Alders card, totaling to 78. But when he made these cards, the mist started to appear because people were going less and less to the spirit to ask for magic because they had access to it easily with these cards. They didn't need to go and ask her for it anymore. And there was a cost, but it wasn't like a cost for me to have.
It wasn't, if you just used it once, it wasn't a heavy cost.
Yeah, if you just used it lightly, it was no big deal.
You didn't even notice it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So every one of them does something specific and has some sort of cost associated with it the longer you use it. In order for the mist or for the spirit to lure people back, the mist started to spread. The mist spread, isolating us from neighboring kingdoms. Worse, children who tarried in it grew sick with fever, their veins darkening. Those who survived the fever often carried magic gifts, like those the spirit used to bestow, only more unruly, more dangerous. Her voice shook. But these children degenerated over time. Some grew twisted in their bodies, others in the minds, and few survived to adulthood. So because of that, the shepherd king went back to the spirit to try to learn how to stop the mist from spreading. It cost him the Twin Alders card. He learned that in order to evade the infection, you needed to carry this charm, which is the crow's foot for Elspeth.
Yeah, everybody has a different charmed item.
And there's like a way to make it. There's this whole ritual that goes along with creating the curse. The shepherd king, we don't know what happened to him, but he left behind the old book of Alders with all the instructions about the cards and the mist and how to evade it. Later, Elspeth is given a letter from her father. He's inviting her to go to Equinox as a spindle and not a hawthorn. She doesn't know how the magic's degeneration will affect her, though, and worries it will manifest in front of the Rowan King. That night, she dreams. She dreams for the first time since the nightmare took over her brain. She walks in, and it's like this stony ivy place with this gold knight sitting on an edge. And when she's like, what is this? The gold knight turns. She sees the yellow eyes, and it shifts into her uncle's library, and the knight becomes this creature. She's asking questions about the dream, and what was that? What did I just see? And the nightmare, who doesn't say anything outright.
Never.
The whole time, the whole book. He's like, I could explain all this to you easily in 2 seconds, but let me speak in this stupid rhyming voice. And he leaves her with a rhyme that is, there once was a girl, clever and good, who tarried in shadow in the depths of the wood. There also was a king, a shepherd by his crook, who reigned over magic and wrote the old book. The two were together, so the two were the same. The girl, the king, and the monster they became. Thanks for that, Nightmare. That really summed things up. Thank you.
After reading the book and going back, it makes so much sense.
Yes,
You're like,
but when
how
you're
did
first
how did you
reading
not
it?
catch it?
Yes,
Like, duh,
exactly. Like,
Elspeth.
oh, weird. It's telling you exactly what's happening, and you aren't even really paying attention. Pay attention, woman.
It's like all about her life. You should know this, lady. You live and breathe this. We're just trying to figure it out. In the evening, in the Great Hall, Elspeth does go to Equinox, and she's seated next to Emery Yu, the Rowan King's youngest nephew, and second prince, Renelm Rowan, who we call Elm.
Which I like so much better than Renelm.
Seriously.
The names are so weird in this book.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Well, welcome to fantasy.
Yeah, seriously. So feeling sick, she decides to leave the table, but she's had a little bit to drink. And Emery follows her. He grabs her arm and, as if in a trance, tells her that he sees her, his yellow gaze hateful, and her fingers covered in blood. Elspeth tries to leave. A handsome man who tugs Emery away. The man is Ravyn, so the older brother to Emery, and he is the current captain of the Destriers. Equinox party is lit because they all get their own rooms.
Yes.
Yeah.
And-
It sounded like a good time.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
like a Renaissance fair.
Yeah. So the next day she wakes up still in the king's estate because she had her own bindle
Quarters.
room. Yeah. Elspeth is woken by her half-sisters who wish to gossip about Emery. And then later she discusses the possibility of Emery being infected with her aunt because of his comment about her yellow eyes and seeing
this
blood
is
on
where
her
she sees
hands.
Ione.
Then she sees Ione
yes, she
and the
comes
mating
in.
card in her possession, and Elspeth confronts her about the card and her presumed meeting with Hoth. Hoth is next in line to be king.
Crowned prince.
Yes. They argue about the use of the card and how it is dangerous because, again, the nightmare's speaking in riddles in her head.
And Hoth has a reputation for being
Yes.
a terrible human.
Yes. They argue about her even entertaining the idea of having any sort of to-do with Hoth and using that card. Elspeth argues with the nightmare over Ione, and she's discovered by Ravyn, who possesses the second nightmare card. So she runs out into the woods. She's arguing with the nightmare about what her argument with Ione was, and Ravyn says something, and she realizes she's in the woods talking to herself. Ravyn just walked up on it, and Ravyn asks why Elspeth was in the forest 15 days ago. She makes the connection that his dagger is the same one as one of the two highwaymen was holding.
He was the highwayman.
That
It was the
attacked her.
highwayman, or one of the highwaymen who attacked her. Elspeth runs, but Ravyn, who uses the nightmare card on her so he can speak to her in her mind, and totally obviously freaks her out because she's got already another nightmare in her mind.
Right.
And so tells her to wait, tells her I'm not going to hurt you, tells her to keep quiet. He catches up with her and basically is like, the Rowan King is nearby with other destriers and physicians. Like, just shut up. Otherwise, you're going to get us both found. And she draws on the nightmare and she kicks him. Running again, Ravyn discovers the black ink that marks Elspeth. So he sees her veins. He assures her that he's not going to hurt her. Once the guards and everyone are gone, he only wishes to know about her magic. So everyone, it kind of quiets down. They talk a little bit about it. She basically says, you entered my mind without my permission. Never again. You cannot. Because she's worried that he's going to hear the nightmare.
Yeah.
She asks him, like, what did you hear? She starts to follow him on the condition that they avoid the gardens because she doesn't want to see the women there who possess Providence cards. And Ravyn's like, how do you know that they have Providence cards in the garden? So Elspeth and Ravyn enter the castle through the servants' entrance and arrive at a locked room. He temporarily leaves her there, locking the door behind him, and she consults the nightmare, and he correctly guesses that Ravyn will want to test her magic. When he returns, Ravyn is followed by his destrier sister, Jesper, who I like.
I like Jesper too.
Yeah, and a physician named Philip Willow, which she freaks out. Like, you brought a physician here? You told me you weren't going to do. As they're walking through the corridor, she talks about, like, she could see the dungeon area, and he's like, I'll never take you there. And he's telling her all these promises, like, I'm going to keep you safe. Trust me. And then he brings in a physician, and she's like,
What the hell?
Yeah. He starts questioning about her abilities, and she starts giving half-truths, stating basically that I'm not necessarily lying. I can just tell you, like, the best lies are
Well, isn't
just
the
a little bit of
nightmare
truth.
in
Yeah.
her head telling her, like, only give them certain information?
Yeah,
like,
he's
let me
helping her through
tell
it.
you what you can tell them. And so he's
Yeah, but
kind of
telling
guiding her.
in rhymes.
Yeah. He's guiding her on how to lie.
No, my dear, keep it unclear.
Stating she can see the color of cards as each of the 12 variants has a unique velvety frame around them. It matches that, this hue, this
Like
glowing hue.
aura
Oh,
of the
that's
cards.
how I pictured it. Was like an aura.
Yeah. Suddenly, Elm enters the room, the younger prince, and Elspeth can see his scythe card, which grants emotional command of people. I want to really bring home what the scythe card does. I can get into your mind and make you do what I want you to do. However, it's not that if I say, I want you to walk off this bridge, your legs will just start moving. It specifically says that you will want to walk off
Yeah.
the bridge.
It gives you the desire to do what I'm telling you to do.
And I have a question later when we get to something else. And then he reveals he is the other highwayman.
We'll get into the next section. It's still part 1, but it's now chapters 8 through 14. Elspeth, after she gets interrogated by Ravyn's family, she's left alone with Ravyn. Elspeth is fitted with a blindfold. He asks her to name the card he places on the table and its color to prove she can see the cards. She notices the cards' colors sometimes flicker as Ravyn's touching them. So he continues to place cards in front of her. They discuss his attack in the forest, and then he places a card with no color, and she correctly guesses that it's fate. He wants to collect a deck of cards, and she offers to help him if he keeps her infection a secret. Also, he's not allowed to take her uncle's cards or use the nightmare card on her again. So she already voiced, stay the hell out of my head. But if I'm gonna help you, you are not allowed. Like, we're done.
Yes.
If you put that shit on me again. Ravyn leaves Elspeth at the spindle room as she prepares for the feast. When they arrive at the feast, they are greeted by Elm, and she finds her Aunt Opal and asks for Ione. Alex, whom Elspeth shared a kiss from in years past,
Sorry.
interrupts and was like, hey. Oh, because she originally went to Senpai Emery because Alex interrupts her in the first little cocktail hour. And he's like, oh, I want to ask your dad if you can and sit with me and my family. And she's like, no, I've already am sitting with the ewes.
Yes. And he's like, well, I already got your blessing. Doesn't that mean anything?
Yeah. And
No,
then this
bitch.
time he comes up to her again at the feast and he's like, I've already asked your dad for permission to sit with me.
Yeah.
I don't like Alex. Alex can go fuck himself. And she's like,
And this is like the
"Oh."
only time we really see him, but
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. And she sees Ravyn and she's like, too bad I'm sitting with the ewes again. So
Do what I want.
after she sits down, the Rowan King arrives and announces that Tyrion provided him with the nightmare card and Ione, who used the maiden card, his betrothed to Hoth. So it's officially announced
She's being sold to Hoth.
for some cards.
But she does kind of.
She wants
doesn't
it.
say that she wants it to Elspeth earlier, but she definitely alludes like it's my own decision, and
she
am
was
choosing
excited
it.
about
Yes.
it. Yes. Elspeth is upset at Ione's use of the maiden card and betrothal to Hoth. Ravyn calls her out for not admitting that Tyrion had the other nightmare card, indirectly revealing that the Rowan King does not know he had the first nightmare card. So Elspeth asks for the whole truth. Elspeth and Ravyn leave the hall and head to Ravyn's room where he calls for his counsel. He uses the nightmare card to contact the others, and the nightmare tells Elspeth to remain quiet and observant. They hear Orith Willow, head of the physicians, on the other side of the door discussing Emery. Ravyn gives Elspeth the mirror card to use, but she doesn't want to touch it. She's terrified that something else is going to come and jump and live in her mind.
She's gonna absorb something else.
Yeah, no thank you. Ravyn uses it to become invisible, and Elspeth follows the color of Ravyn's card only to find Nerium calling for her. She accuses Elspeth of putting the family at risk, insults her deceased mother, and says her father likely doesn't care for her considering he sent her away as a child. So
Yeah,
again, Nerium just being a real bitch. She leaves after Elspeth reminds her that her mother's memory will never be replaced. Ravyn and Elspeth are quiet as they enter the cellar where Jesper, Elm, Philip, and Ravyn's parents, Fenrir and Moret, are waiting for her. Before the interrogation, Elspeth is given a choice of cards to submit to: the scythe, the chalice, which is like a truth serum, or the nightmare. She follows the nightmare's advice and chooses the scythe card. Elm uses the card to make her feel euphoria, hopelessness, and then to slap herself in the face. But not just like a soft slap. She really slaps the shit out of herself.
It sort of reminded me of like a big brother, like telling you, why are you slapping yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?
Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
So once he's satisfied, like, all right, she's under the control of the card. Fenrir asks about her childhood and why she lives with her uncle. Ravyn asks whether or not Elspeth trusts the team, and she struggles not to give too much away. She asks the nightmare for help, and she learns that the scythe doesn't affect him at all. She's like, motherfucker.
Which is why
Again,
he told her to pick that one.
But why? Would you not just up front? Don't be scared, baby girl. Just let me come out.
Yeah, just let me use it.
It's his goal. He wants to come out.
Right.
None of these were going to work on you, so let's just
Yeah.
move about.
Yeah, let me just be honest.
Yeah.
Pick whatever card you want. I don't care. Because just let me handle it.
yeah, I got it.
Although I do think that he's strategically guiding her to do his bidding, right? So I think he's picking these things on purpose. He's just not telling her because
But it
he
would
has a
be
whole
s-
plan.
But it would be so easy for him to just take over the whole time. Once the nightmare takes over, she's able to lie again. And when she's asked if she will keep the team's secret, she honestly agrees. Like, that part's not a lie. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm going to keep your secret.
Yeah.
The team is looking to collect a deck of cards to save Emery. So she was right in her thoughts that Emery was infected. The old Book of Alder states infected blood is needed to lift the spirit's mist. So there needs to be spilled blood of a infected child.
Magic blood.
Yes. They are missing 3 cards: the Iron Gate, the Well card, and the Twin Alder card, and assures Elspeth that if she agrees to help, she will be cured, and she agrees to help.
Yeah, she doesn't want to have magic. She hasn't wanted to have it.
She doesn't want to be
She's-
infected.
She does. She just wants to live a normal life. So for
Yeah.
her, it's
That's why she doesn't typically use the power of
yes.
the
Yeah.
nightmare.
She's
Only
whatever.
since meeting Ravyn.
Yeah, whatever I got to
Seriously.
do to make sure I can live a normal life, I'm in. Sign me up.
So Elspeth waits outside of the cellar as the council communes. She eavesdrops on the council. Elm is not convinced. He has such a hard time trusting her, rightfully so. But
I
the
mean,
others
she
agree.
Whooped his ass.
Yeah. They agree since Morith used a prophet card and saw that Elspeth is destined to help. So right now, Emery's being held at the Rowan, because the Rowan King is also looking for the deck to lift the mist. But he's holding Emery so that Emery's blood can be spilled.
Yeah, they don't want to. They are trying to,
To
save him from being killed.
Right, to
essentially.
complete the ritual. Fenrir decides that Elspeth should be brought to the Yew house. Jesper proposes they invite her under the pretenses that Ravyn is courting her. Ravyn is unwilling at first. And again, Elspeth is eavesdropping, so she hears him like vehemently being, no, I don't want to court this girl.
Like repulsed by the idea.
Yes. The council disperses and Ravyn meets with Elspeth. He tells her, this is the plan. You're going to come to our house under the pretense that I'm courting you. She's like, well, can I leave? Am I trapped there? Is this just another prison? So they agree that she can leave whenever she would like. The nightmare warns her about different cages, and she leaves with Ravyn. Before they return to the garden to publicly display their courtship, they visit Emery, and he explains they need the deck of cards because Emery's magic is erratic during season changes. So this is him degenerating. As they approach his room, they discover that he's disappeared, and as they are searching for Emery, they run into the Rowan King, who takes an interest in Elspeth, which is creepy.
The whole Rowan family
is weird.
I mean, Elm is the most normal, but
Yes, Elm's a jerk, but he's not like the others.
no.
Her dad used to be the captain of the Destriers, Elspeth's dad. So he knows Elspeth and who her father is. And for him to be like, that's a hot piece of ass you got there, Ravyn.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
Gross.
Again, sort of reminds me of medieval times when they would
Share your wench with me,
Yes.
lad.
I'll buy that wench from you.
and they were like 13. Ugh,
Yeah.
it was just
gross.
awful.
Yeah.
They return to the garden and see Emery in the crowd. Elspeth stays with Elm as they watch Ravyn confront the eagle card wielders encircling Emery. The king knows that, or at least the henchmen knew that Emery got out, and they were basically hunting him down. The men come to blows. Elm mentioned that Ravyn is infected like Emery and Elspeth. As Ravyn subdues the men and takes their cards, Elspeth sees their white color flicker. So while Emery makes fun of Elspeth and Ravyn, she confronts Ravyn about his infection. Ravyn reveals that while he can use the mirror and the nightmare card, he cannot use the other cards, nor can they be used on him. So he's already degenerated to the point where he only has 2 cards he can use now. They return to Emery and Elm, and Emery recites the old Book of Alder's descriptions for the nightmare card, which tells Elspeth that he can see or sense the nightmare. Emery goes into a trance again and says one of the inscriptions.
And that ends Chumpy number 2.
Yeah.
Dos.
And takes us
Chumpero.
into part 2. Not only are you guys musical, but you're bilingual. I like it.
Only the best for you.
Oh, now we're at part 2, chapters 15 through 21. They return home, and Elspeth joins the Yu family, while Emery's left behind at Stone.
That's the name of the Rowan King house.
And Ravyn tells Elspeth that he is reluctant to share information after years of pretending to not be infected. Elspeth remains spiteful. She's kind of spiteful that he doesn't
I
want to
understand.
court her, so she's kind of like,
What's wrong with me, motherfucker?
yes.
She's like,
I thought I was beautiful.
Yeah, she is, I'm sure.
Yes. So that night, Elspeth is intrigued by a familiar man on the rug in her room. She's just hanging out in her room after the festivities, and she's looking down at this rug, and it just sparks a memory. It's familiar to her, and she doesn't know why yet. She asks Jesper, and Jesper tells her that it's the Shepherd King on her rug. Opal writes Elspeth to tell her that she is always welcome at home and warns her that old magic dwells in the Castle U. Jesper tells Elspeth of the imminent visit of Sylvia Pine and her 3 daughters. Waylon Pine is the husband, and he might possess the Iron Gate card. Ravyn leaves in the morning while Jesper, Moret, and Elspeth play host. Elspeth engages with one daughter, Greta, about the Providence cards by admitting that Ione uses the Maiden card. Greta admits that her father owns the Iron Gate, and when they leave, they wait for Ravyn and Elm to arrive to discuss the card's history. And Fenrir notes that all the Shepherd King's history was destroyed. When Elspeth asks about who they will sacrifice to lift the mist, Fenrir admits they plan to use Orit. Elspeth admits her father owns the Well card at this time, and she finally tells him, like, this is the card that he has. When Ravyn returns the next day, Elspeth tries to avoid him. Despite herself, she is charmed by him. She really does like him, and he is attractive.
Yeah, she thinks he's
and
a
charming.
handsome guy.
Despite what he likes to say, he does also like her. He takes her on a tour of the Yu estate, bringing her to the castle ruins in the forest. And when she attempts to pocket her crow's foot, Ravyn tells her she doesn't need a protection from the mist since she's infected. The ruins are older than stone.
The Rowan King
Rowan
Castle.
King Castle. The only room standing is a chamber with one window. The nightmare wants Elspeth to enter, stating that the window was made for the spirit to come and go, implying he's been in the chamber before. She starts to realize that he knows more than what he's letting on.
He always has.
And
he's been telling her in sing songs.
And I picture like a sing-along, you know? The little ball is just like... bum, 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 bum. She refuses to enter and asks Ravyn if he feels the cost of his cards. He only hears the nightmare taunt him after prolonged use, but it's his own voice. When they return to the castle they plan to steal the Iron Gate card. They are going to disguise themselves as highwaymen and rob the Pine carriage. Elspeth is taken to the armory where she meets the other team members, the butler, John Thistle, Wick Ivy, and Eater Ivy. Elspeth has to ride the horse with Elm because the animals are afraid of her infection. At the viewpoint, Ravyn hands Elspeth a blindfold to use as a mask. She recoils at the memory of being robbed because it is sort of traumatic that she, I mean, I would be a little traumatized as well had I been robbed.
And then she's being asked to do it to someone else.
Point.
Yeah.
Dagger point.
Ravyn apologizes for the encounter because now he feels bad. At the time, he didn't realize that it was her and was kind of just going after the cards. And now he's like, oh, now I know who you are. And
I like you.
I like you and I feel a little bad about it. Elspeth agrees.
But also you bested me.
Twice.
Thrice.
It will be thrice.
Elspeth agrees to forgive him if he calls her by her name.
Because he keeps calling her Miss Spindle.
Miss Spindle, yeah. They hear a whistle and know the carriage is on the way. Elspeth and the team do not foresee the carriage being accompanied by Hoth and the Destriers, but Elspeth directs the team to the first carriage and chaos just ensues. Waylon Pine hides behind the Destriers.
Like a little bitch.
Ravyn tells Elspeth to run away. She flees but runs into her father. Dun, dun, dun. Elm engages with him, and Eric gets the upper hand. So they start all fighting.
Because he was the captain of this elite guard.
He
So it's
should.
not like he doesn't know how to fight.
He should be
By dagger
well-rounded.
point.
He should be well-rounded with his axe and his dagger.
His axe. Does he have an axe?
No, a
Okay, good.
sword.
I
know.
thought it was a joke, but then I was like, wait, does he?
Elm engages with him, and Eric gets the upper hand. Elsbeth throws a rock at her father, allowing Elm to escape, but faces Eric alone. Can you imagine? Your dad is there, and now you just have to throw this boulder at him. And to
It
try
wasn't
to
a
save-
boulder. It's a rock.
She's strong.
She
It is
rolled
a boulder.
She got on
rolled
the
it
top of the
over.
hill and kicked it down.
Either way, she still has to attack her own father. And I don't think she has any like crazy daddy issues, so she probably feels bad about it.
He sent her away and doesn't talk to her except for on her namesake day. I don't think she gives a fuck right now.
Well, right now she has
he
a new...
makes an effort, and even the aunt says your dad is making an effort.
Yes.
Because he's no longer captain of the Destriers. So I think when he was, it was like, I'm doing this to protect you.
I think the whole reason that he sent her away was to protect her
Yes,
and to
'cause
try to be a good, loving father. You're going to die if I don't do this. So
Yeah.
I'm going to send you
And
away to
I'm
my
not willing
brother.
to lose you.
Yeah, I already lost your mom. I don't want to lose my daughter too.
But let me marry this bitch who hates you.
Well, that part.
She calls on the nightmare. With the nightmare's strength and speed, she ends up overpowering her father. Jesper comes to help, and they run into the mist while the Destriers follow. Jesper loses her charm and becomes disoriented in the mist.
I think the part really quick, when she's fighting her dad, the part that would maybe jack with me is his look that he gives her. And she can see almost not recognition, but confusion and then terror because she's got these yellow cat eyes. And I think it comes up later too. When she looks at him, she sees this terror in his eyes.
Yeah,
and
she's scared the shit
Oh,
out of him.
because
the shish-
Ravyn has that same look
Yes.
when he sees her yellow eyes.
Yeah.
Well, people notice it, and now she's starting to become aware of the fact that they're noticing something about her.
Yeah, that
She's
she didn't know was there.
She had no idea about it.
Yeah.
Elspeth looks for Ravyn, but is discovered by Hoth. She tries to run, but he breaks her wrist. So they like get into this little scuffle, and she's trying to get away. He grabs her arm and ends up breaking her wrist in the process.
Yes.
She strikes with the nightmare and leaves large gassers. She's using the nightmare this whole time through this entire encounter of
Yeah, she can't
fights.
fight.
Yes, she's not the girl from Hunger Games.
No, she's been hidden away.
So she calls on the nightmare and she scratches and gashes him up. She finds Ravyn with the color of his cards and brings him to Jesper. Elm and Ravyn wonder how Elspeth escaped Hoth. They didn't have any clue because she keeps besting people and they don't know how.
She's like, I know you don't realize I'm a badass, but I am. Okay,
Yeah,
you
I
guys?
totally
I can fight like a motherfucker.
Yes.
Obviously, I bested you guys.
I'm just besting all these people left and right.
Yeah.
You could call me the best of the best.
Elsbeth rides with Ravyn back to the castle. He didn't recognize her in the mist because her eyes were yellow. So now they're yellow often, and people are really starting to notice. Ravyn says their courtship will have more scrutiny and asks if she wants to continue. Elsbeth gives a vague answer, and Ravyn tells her to call him by his name. That night, she dreams of a man in gold armor again, and he asks her to leave the room. Elsbeth wakes with the start and sees the nightmare when she looks into a glass for a moment. She fears the nightmare is taking her soul. The next morning, Ione appears.
At this point in the book, I think I was getting frustrated with like, how does she not realize what's happening? Doesn't she realize that he's taking over her?
I don't think
There were certain things that when she was like, oh my God, I'm realizing. I was like, bitch, I thought we knew that in chapter 2.
seriously.
She is very slow to, like, she still thinks, like, there's no degeneration. Like, I haven't
Yeah.
paid a price for anything
I have
yet.
no idea
I
what
wonder
that
what it
is.
would be.
Yes.
Yes.
And who is this shepherd by crook you keep telling me about and the monster they become? Because he says it not just once, like
Several times.
Several
4 times.
times.
Yes. Like, how are you not making the Elspeth?
There's
You
a
are.
girl and a monster, and they become one.
You are the
You've
girl
literally
child.
looked the monster in the face.
So the next morning, Ione appears. Elspeth has to pretend that she broke her wrist from falling off the horse. Comes into the parlor to announce that Hoth and the Destriers have come to the castle to train. When he prompts Ione about her sudden visit, she states she wanted to speak to Hoth and not Elspeth. When Ravyn meets with Hoth, he taunts him about Elspeth, and Ravyn challenges Hoth, but he declines. So Elm calls Hoth a coward and pushes him to spar. Ravyn proves to be the better fighter. Ravyn injures Hoth's hand for hurting Elspeth. He's protecting her now. He's becoming a little more caring on how people treat her. Later that night, Elm voices concerns to Ravyn about Elspeth, but he defends her. Elspeth is eavesdropping and tries to hide before she is discovered, but Ravyn spies her. He admits that he injured Hoth because of her hand and asks her to follow him, and she accepts. And that is the end of chapter 21. And we go on to chapter 22 through 28.
28. Let's start with 22. So Ravyn leads Elspeth to the castle ruins chamber again, and as they enter, she realizes this is the room from her dreams. As its center is a stone, and that's where she like saw the gold knight sitting, the center of which Ravyn transforms into, like, just by cutting his hand and bleeding on it, it turns into clear. She describes it as clear water. The team's inactive cards are kept in there. The nightmare explains offering blood is how the spirit would bargain, and the chamber is an altar to the spirit built by the Shepherd King. Elspeth notices the flickering of the card colors at Ravyn's touch, and he explains he was infected at 13, which is older than most. Hoth reported him, but the Roan King decided that he was worthy of keeping around and wanted to weaponize this since he had immunity to cards magic. Ravyn reveals that every year he loses the ability to use and be affected by one of the cards variants, and in 3 years he will lose the ability to use all cards if there's no cure, which doesn't seem that bad to me.
To lose the ability to use all the cards?
Yeah, you can't use the cards, but also they can't be used on you. Like, oh.
Now you don't have any magic and you're not affected by it?
Yeah,
Sounds
that's too
pretty good to
bad.
me.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a terrible degeneration.
How
Yeah, exactly.
dare you?
I mean, I think he might feel a little bit guilty that his brother has such a bad degeneration.
His brother's
in-
going crazy, basically.
Yes. Elspeth questions his loyalty to Elm since Ravyn has animosity toward Hoth.
How
Why
can
does
you be-
Elm choose you over his own brother? Like,
Yeah,
you
like-
have so much trust that he's not going to go betray you. And why? And he's like, if you knew Elm, you would know he's not going to choose his family. He has a lot of loyalty.
But
to
technically,
me.
they are family. Like, they're cousins.
but not his brother and his dad.
No, he's never going to choose them.
Right, he's never going to choose them. He explains that Elm sees the Yews as his true family since they're relatives through Morit Yew, and Elspeth attempts to close the stone. She's the only other person who could potentially open it because she has infected blood. So if anything happens to me, I need you to be able to do this. And she's like, if you want me to be able to do this, then I need to practice right now. And he like gently slices open her hand, and she gets close because he's helping her, and then she puts it and it closes up, and then they're so close they can feel each other's breath onto each other.
That is how they describe it. It's so weird. Ew, I can smell your dinner.
Yeah, gross. Did you brush your teeth? This is Renaissance time. Probably not.
I was going to
Probably
say,
wouldn't.
what is toothbrush?
So she closes the stone, and their proximity leads to a kiss. As she's kissing him, it is very intimate.
Like
He's got like her
romantic.
hands on her and filling up her hair and all the things, and she's really leaning into it. And she opens her eyes and she sees the old knight in the gold armor in the middle of the room, and he's looking at her. That would be terrifying to like
Yes.
see with the yellow eyes. And she hears Elspeth, "Let me out." It freaks her out, so she runs and basically is like, "Leave me alone." And Ravyn is left there. We're just making out. What happened? I think he kind of takes it personal, but she flees, confronting the nightmare about the old man. Like,
She
what
thinks
is
they're
that?
two separate things.
Yes.
Who is this
Who
old man?
is that?
Yeah, she doesn't realize that
Yeah.
she's
She's a slow
seeing
girl.
him. Yeah.
Seriously.
She is very slow.
And so he basically is like, you know the answers. You know these things, all the questions she has. And he informs Elspeth that the man is who he once was. And she realizes the nightmare nightmare is the soul of the Shepherd King. He actually says, but it felt incomplete, my collection yet. Or she remembers the Book of the Alders. He doesn't actually say, hey, I'm the Shepherd King. She remembers that before the nightmare card where he surrendered his soul, he says, but it felt incomplete, my collection yet whole, and so for the nightmare, I bartered my soul. She puts her hands on her mouth, fingers shaking. My voice came out hollow, but that would mean I absorbed your soul when I touched the nightmare card, which makes you the Shepherd King. A growl, a sneer, oil, bile. His voice called louder than it had ever been, as if he was closer, stronger. Finally, my dear Elspeth, we understand one another. Which,
Like, bitch, it took you 12 years.
It took
But
you long
also,
enough.
why didn't you just say it? Why was it a secret and she had to find it out on her own and get to that?
Maybe he wasn't allowed to.
Yeah,
'cause
maybe
the
there
magic
was a reason.
prohibited him. I don't know.
Which makes me wonder, is her power that she just absorbs the cards?
She absorbs whatever was sacrificed. The next morning, Elspeth wakes in the yew gardens and is found by the physician, Philip Willow. She basically claims that she was, I must have been sleepwalking. And she's clearly a nerve.
She has no idea how the hell she woke up there.
No, but it's been happening. So she tells him, like, I was sleepwalking. She's unnerved. She talks with Philip. He shares the history of the physicians and how they originally treated infected instead of hunting them. He talks about, like, the old magic and how a lot of what he talks about is, like, these are just theories. But Philip suggests that Brutus, the first Roman king, he took the throne from the Shepherd King. And he hated the infected because he feared the spirit's magic or anyone more powerful than him, really. When Elspeth is left alone, she demands the nightmare not use her body when she is asleep and asks why she's starting to see his memories. And she also asks Philip, what do you think my degeneration is? Because all these other people have it. And he's like, I don't know. You don't seem to show any signs of degeneration. And when she asks, like, why am I starting to be able to see your memories? And what is my degeneration? He basically is like, you already have an idea of what your degeneration is. Just say it, Elspeth.
Say it out loud.
Say it out loud. And so she realizes that her degeneration is a loss of control over her body and mind, and rather than any illness. When the nightmare retracts from Elspeth's mind, Elm finds her to tell her that the team is going out for market day. They get all dressed up for market day and
In their family colors.
yes, which how it's got to be a small town, right? There's only
It's a
so many
kingdom.
They're like, you're red, I'm chartreuse, you're violet, I'm purple. Okay, so they go to market day, they get all dressed up, and she is wearing her mother's crimson dress because the spindle color's red. She also puts a little rose in her hair. Elspeth joins the yews, Elm, Hoth, Ione, and the Destriers in the courtyard. Hoth notices Elspeth's broken wrist. She makes a comment about he starts to come at her, like come for her, like, hey, baby girl. Right in front of Ione, his betrothed.
Because
and
he's like, Raven
what do you
can't
even
do it for you.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you even see in my cousin anyways? And she's like, he's tall. And Raven
'cause
gets
he's
like
taller
this
than
like
him.
cocky, like, that's right, bitch. Get out of my way. I'm taller than you. She puts her arm through his and they walk away. And Hoth goes to grab her other arm.
Yeah.
And she winces, unable to hide the pain. And he's like, what happened to your arm?
Yeah, because I'm sure they're not casting their arms back then.
Right, yeah. He realizes that her wrist is broken, and Ione speaks up and says that she heard it when they went horseback riding the day before, my dear. Elm directs Elspeth to the market square, and as they pass Spindle House, he has to stop Elspeth from stealing her father's well card. She's like, my father won't be in there. Let's just go. And he's like, it's not just gonna be laying out on the table for us to take. And she makes a comment like, you don't ever want to do anything without Raven around. Like, you could do things without him. And he's like, I could say the same thing about you. It's like this, like, they kind of have this little tiff. They like each other, but also they
fight all the time.
Yes.
They don't trust each other.
They don't trust each other. So when Elspeth is walking alone, Raven does find her and confesses that he liked her from their first meetings. As the pair share an embrace, the Spindles find them. Eric is captivated by Elspeth's dress, but she is pulled away by her half-sisters because they want to gossip about Raven.
Well, once they walk up and they go, here she is. She's
told
with
you she
Raven.
was
I
here."
knew she'd
Yes.
be here. And so
Yes.
they're just the little sisters that
Elspeth doesn't want.
Yes.
Like, she's like, get away from it. And even the nightmare's like, this is intolerable.
Yeah, then he goes and hides in the corner of her mind, like, I can't be here for this.
Yes.
But they do. One of the things, they sound just like Miriam. They ask, like, what are you going to do when he finds out that you're infected? He's the captain of the Destriers. Doesn't this feel stupid? And she's like, I just know he's not going to turn me in. She eventually is able to sneak away from them, and she finds Elm, and he tells her while Raven believes in her, he still distrusts her because he notices her sudden strength and the yellow eyes, and he's been bested a few times by her. At that moment, Destriers, led by Hoth, entered the market to make an example of two parents who hid their infected mutilated child. This is such a sad part. As the Destriers whip the father, Hoth speaks to the crowd explaining the way the parents betrayed their community. No one in the crowd supports Hoth's actions. People are too nervous. They're scared to say anything, but they're also not
stopping it,
cheering him on.
Yeah, they're not like, yeah, get those fuckers. They're just like,
And she can clearly see what the physician was telling her, that people are being led by fear in order to give Rowan's power. But really, we shouldn't be doing that. He uses the scythe card to demand the parents' charms and then orders them to walk into the mist. Orith brings the child out of like a carriage to watch his parents walk. She's expecting this child to be wailing, but he's not. He's actually incredibly strong. He's standing up tall. The nightmare hisses that history will remember how children were treated above all.
He's disgusted by them.
Yes, like they're going to remember you whether you watched as a child was killed or if you did something about it. And Elspeth basically says the same thing to Elm. She convinces him to stop the parents so she can go and save the child. He gives her his cloak so her dress is hidden so she's not identified as a spindle. They trade masks. She says, you keep looking around. I know who you're looking for. He's not here. Someone needs to do something. And so he pulls out his scythe card and he starts also commanding the parents, and the parents like freeze, are statues because they don't know what to do. This is the part I wanted to say. The mom is wailing while she is walking towards, it's like she clearly is being forced to do this. But if the scythe card from the beginning was meant to make you want to do whatever it's telling you, why is she wailing and not wanting to do it, but being forced to do it?
Maybe it's forcing them to walk, but she still has the awareness that her child is back here. And
like she's like, I want to go into the mist, but I also know that my child is...
I'm losing my child.
So she's, it's like two
or she's
separate
crying because
emotions.
she's going to die. And
yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe that's how it works. I don't know, because
I don't know either.
I'm just
But the way that it
understand.
sounded a few times, I think, is it's obviously just making the person do it even though they don't want to. But it should be, I want to walk into this forest, and that's why I'm choosing to do it on my own.
Like going willingly and happily about it.
Yes.
Because I want to go do
what I want to do
maybe
now.
willing and happy aren't the same thing.
That's true.
Maybe. Okay, so Elspeth then draws on the nightmare to attack Orith and escapes into the mist with the boy. A Destrier named Lyndon pursues her, and as she and the boy run, she experiences a memory of children escaping a fire to reach the spirit's altar, which is what a scary thing to be seen in the moment.
Yeah, because it's not her memory.
It's not her memory, but she has a memory of all these children running with her. Knowing the boy will slow her down, she gives him her crow's foot and instructs him to find his parents. Elspeth fights Lyndon and loses control. When she regains it, Lyndon is on the ground with deep gashes in his neck. She runs into Ravyn, her eyes yellow and hands bloody.
Just like Emery said she would be.
After checking on Elspeth, Ravyn ordered the Destriers to control the mayhem. When he returns, he questions her if she was recognized by Orith and why her eyes turn yellow. She refuses to tell him, and they return to the market.
That was a fun day. Let's go back.
Yeah, right. Ravyn publicly, because he shows up, publicly berates Hoth for undermining his command of the Destriers. It's so interesting that as soon as he shows up and starts telling the other Destriers, what are you doing? Stop doing this. They're all like, oh, yes, sir. Right?
My bad.
And like immediately.
Yeah, we were following the Crown Prince.
Yeah. So he's reprimanding the Destriers pretty publicly. When they arrive to the Yew estate, they discover Emery escaped stone again. Elspeth and Ravyn find Emery in the Yew library, dangerously cold. When he is warmed up, he explained he wanted to return home. Emery shares his theory that the Yews are descended from the Shepherd King. Meanwhile, the nightmare refuses to give his real name to Elspeth. But that's what I mean. Like, and okay, because the nightmare is not going to give his real name to you, you can't make the connection.
She's too deep, maybe. You know, when you're too close to the situation.
Too deep, and I'm trying to keep. You know that one. Instead of going under. At dinner, Elm chastises Ravyn for not taking the opportunity to steal the well card from the Spindle House and trusting Elspeth after she maimed Lyndon. However, Ravyn had a plan for Market Day.
Which that part irritated me because Elm was given the opportunity to go steal it with Elspeth, and he was like, no, we can't do it. Now he was like, oh, Ravyn, you dumbass. You should have taken that card.
Why did you do that? Yeah. And she's like, I told you. You're too afraid to do anything without Ravyn. You should have done it. Told you so. That's how I would have been, at least. Yeah. So, however, Ravyn had a plan for Market Day. His, Elm, and Elspeth's attendance was a cover for the Ivies to steal the card, which they failed to find.
So he did have people in that house.
Slowly, everyone but Ravyn and Elspeth leave the table. She asks him to be honest and confesses that she is degenerating. It is her degeneration that led her to lose control with Lyndon. He promises her she is safe with him. They leave for Ravyn's room, where they share a night of passion.
It was not. It was one chili spice scene.
This book is definitely not smutty.
No. It was an MSG spice scene.
It was very lackluster.
Salt and pepper.
The next morning, Elspeth gathers her clothes and leaves before Ravyn wakes. At breakfast, everyone notices the pair's mood. They're happy. They got freaky, and they are in a good mood.
They are glowing today.
Before Emery prepares to leave for Stone, Elspeth asks Emery to read her. When he does, he sees the nightmare is now woven into her spine, leaving her little time as herself.
And it like shakes Emery.
Yes.
It terrifies him.
Because I think he's a scary looking thing.
Also, if you know that using your magic potentially pushes your degeneration, why would you ask this poor kid who's clearly suffering already to do it?
All right, so then we're in our last chunk, part 3, chapters 29 through 35. So Elspeth has another dream, and in this dream, she's ushering children through the forest to the spirit's altar in the castle ruins. A scythe card wielder is waiting, and Elspeth suddenly coughs blood and is enveloped by the earth. She wakes up at the spirit's altar. The stone used to hide the inactivity cards is in fact the Shepherd King's grave. Elspeth
Is his body in there?
They never say it
Like
outright, but
mummied?
I would assume his body is under there somewhere.
He's mummied in there, preserved.
The liquid is his bones.
Ew.
His bone broth
Ew.
that they're hiding the cards in.
Broth.
Elspeth,
it's clear.
Elspeth loses consciousness and wakes up in Castle U. She asks the nightmare to leave her alone, but he enumerates how he's protected her over the years. Like, oh, you want me to leave you alone now, but I've done all of these things to keep you safe. Later, Elspeth and Ravyn's team travel to Spindle House, and the Rowan King, Hoth, Ione, and Tyrion also attend. During Elspeth's sister's name day celebration, so many name day celebrations, Elm pairs up with Elspeth and Jesper pairs up with Ravyn to find the well card. So they're hunting through the house trying to find it. As Elspeth and Elm search the library on the 3rd floor, they are discovered by the Spindle's butler, and Elspeth tries to make him leave, but he shows her disrespect. Elm uses his scythe card to force him to bow before leaving. The butler is being hella rude to Elspeth, and Elm forces him to bow. Elspeth finally understands Elm's wariness of her is born from protectiveness over Ravyn. Ravyn and Jesper also fail to locate the well card, and just as Elspeth is about to search alone, Ione finds the team. Her eyes are glazed, and she calls them into the hall to drink from goblets. As everyone drinks to the health of Elspeth's half-sisters, Elm notices Ione is under the influence of the scythe card. Hoth appears and reveals that he slipped the chalice card's truth serum into the cups. So there's a rule with the truth serum. If you sip on it, he has to tap out the card to make it stop. And he tricked them into drinking from the goblet. Hoth imposes a truth-telling game on the team and volunteers to answer their questions first. He's like, I'm gonna go first. Remember we did this as kids. How fun is this? You bitches are all hiding something from me. He reveals he is jealous of Ravyn, and he's used the scythe card on Ione more than once. He's slept with other women since their betrothal. Ione reveals that Hoth treats her like a brute and that she's not in love with him, and she wishes for power. That's why she agreed to be betrothed. I want power. I'm tired of being powerless. Though Ravyn is not affected by the chalice card, he said he genuinely cares for Elspeth, and that whenever he disappears from the Rowan house, the stone, it's to do Rowan King's bidding, which is a lie. That part's a lie. So it's like one truth, one lie.
Well, this card doesn't work on him.
Right. So he won't get sick from it.
Which Hoth gets all pissy about.
Elspeth asks the nightmare for help, but he is not immune to the chalice card, and she's forced to admit that she loves Ravyn. But when Hoth asks what happens to her broken wrist, the others, even Ione, intervene. So even though she's being held,
Everybody's helping her to not have to tell the truth.
right. Ravyn uses his nightmare card to instruct her how to answer the question. So he gets into her head and he's trying to help her through.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Elspeth's own nightmare expels the invader and takes over. He scares the shit out of Ravyn.
Yes.
Like, what are you doing in your mind?
Yes.
She already told you once.
Yeah. Yes.
Ravyn is propelled backward, and though Hoth takes the opportunity to pressure Elspeth to answer, Ione taps the chalice card 3 times, relaxing Elspeth from the truth serum. However, she is poisoned from resisting the serum for too long. So that's part of the truth serum, is that if you don't answer truthfully or you don't answer at all, you get ill.
Yes.
You get poisoned. So she gets poisoned. She wakes up in her bedroom at the Spindle spindle house with Ravyn at her side. So Elm walks in and she's pretending to sleep, listening as Ravyn explains how faint her voice was in her mind, like it was lost in the darkness. She opens her eyes and is honest with him.
She finally tells him the truth about
The nightmare.
the nightmare in her head.
Yeah, because he just heard it.
You can't hide from me
Can't
anymore.
really hide
Yes.
anymore. Like, what was that?
Yeah.
And that's
Oh,
why I
that's just
didn't
my
want
voice
you in my head.
Yeah.
Elspeth invites him to use the nightmare card on her again, and her nightmare reveals himself, and she explains her magic absorbed whatever the Shepherd King sacrificed upon touch, which is how she came to possess his soul. Elm realizes the nightmare is who grants Elspeth strength and yellow eyes. Ravyn asks Elm to leave and speaks to the nightmare about his harm to Elspeth. Jesper interrupts their conversation as the Rowan King wants to see Ravyn. He was trying to have a one-on-one with the nightmare. I don't know what the hell he was trying to do.
Yeah. Listen here, sir.
But I think a lot of when Ravyn is trying to talk to the nightmare, it's a lot of like, what are your intentions with my
my woman?
My future
Yeah,
betrothed.
exactly.
Yeah, they're
Like,
just courting. They're not anything yet.
Yes. Is your plan to take her out and kill her? Or do you mean her harm?
Do I get to keep her? Like, are we going to have a future relationship? Or
Yeah.
am
Can I
I just
kick you
wasting
out of
my
this
time?
frame?
Yes.
I don't want to be
exactly.
sleeping with you again.
Yeah, right.
Because that's what you did, sir.
When Elspeth is alone again, her father finds her. They speak of Hoth and her relationship with Ravyn, and Eric just gives her the well card. They were going to steal it from him, but the dad just gave it to her, like her mother did when they wed. So that was her dowry to get married, was to give Eric the Wells card. He says he would change the past if he could before leaving Elspeth to rest. Later, she finds Ravyn, Elm, and Jesper as they prepare for patrol, and she tells them about the well card. Philip takes the well card for safekeeping, and that evening, Tyrion escorts her to her room where he says her Aunt Opal is waiting for her. However, Hoth is waiting instead, and Tyrion reveals his betrayal was done willingly. She was like, he's not on the scythe card.
I hate her uncle.
I do too. He's a grotesque little
Ugh.
worm of a human.
Little vermin.
Yeah. So Hoth insists on knowing what happened to her wrist. He reveals Tyrion told him about Elspeth's infection and attempts to extort her. He orders her to help trap Ravyn, and she spits in his face, and as Hoth hits her, she asks the nightmare for help. He warns Elspeth that she may lose herself for good. Like, I'm cool. I want to take out this guy, but this
This might be
it.
the last time.
Yeah, this might just be enough. As the nightmare manifests, Orith enters the room. As Hoth and Orith speak over her, Elspeth notices the time and knows Ravyn will return. She screams against her, because she's gagged now and bound. She screams against her gag and lunges for Orith, then Hoth. As they fight, Orith notices her eyes and recognizes her as the person who saved the child on market day. She strikes Hoth, and he fails to control her with the scythe card. Ravyn tries to contact Elspeth using the nightmare. Where are you? But it only distracts her, giving Hoth the opportunity to slam her head against the wall.
Ugh.
As Elspeth slips into darkness, she remembers her loved ones, and she warns Ravyn to find the Twin Alder card and save Emery. She has a vision of a man and a child fleeing a burning castle into the mist, a gray-eyed boy facing a large man with his scythe card and hundreds of children with black veins. When Elspeth wakes, her eyes are yellow, and she and the nightmare are one. Together, they warn Ravyn not to save them before killing Orith and crushing Hoth's face. Elspeth speaks to the nightmare one final time, making him promise to help Ravyn and Emery. She closes her eyes, reciting the story of the girl, the king, and the monster they became. 3 days later, Ravyn and Elm wait in the antechamber of the Rowan King's dungeon. Ravyn recalls entering Elspeth's room and finding Orith's corpse and Hoth and Elspeth injured. When she woke, she told Ravyn and Elm that she killed Orith and wanted to be imprisoned to protect the team. Ravyn used his nightmare card, but is met with her nightmare, saying that Elspeth was resting. She set him free to help the team. The Rowan King arrives.
I was gonna say, she does make a comment. If I had known it would be the last words I'd speak to him, I would have changed them.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about because she becomes a nightmare. So that line, I was like, no, I'll be so pissed.
The Rowan King arrives, and him, Ravyn, and Elm enter the dungeon together. The Rowan King demands to know what an imprisoned Elspeth wants after maiming Hoth and killing Orith. He threatens to kill her, and she reminds him of the mist. They both want to complete a deck, but she will only help if he releases Emery to his parents. Elspeth offers her life in exchange for Emery's and the Twin Alder card, as the Shepherd King is the only one who knows where it is. That is where we end One Dark Window. In the dungeon with the douche Rowan King. The nightmare.
And the nightmare. No Elspeth.
No
to be
Elspeth.
seen.
Well, let's get into
Let's
our
get
ratings.
into our ratings.
Okay.
What are the ratings?
So we have a 3-shot rating. 1 shot, I'm not coming back for more. 2 shots, it's good enough for another, but not worth the hangover. And 3 shots, it got me
Still funny.
so good time. I don't know why it's so funny.
I don't know why
every
it's so
time.
funny.
It's great, though.
I'm going to go first this time.
Okay.
Okay,
And
I
then I'll
can
go
guess,
second.
but okay.
Yeah.
I teetered between a 1 and a 2-shot rating, the whole book, because I do like fantasy, but I don't think I like this type of fantasy.
What is this type?
Is a gothic. I don't know. I think I like fantasy with more battle scenes and trials
Like an
in it.
action fantasy?
Maybe. I do.
You might like the second book then, but there's a lot more fighting and battles. And
But like the way that, I don't know. I guess the premise where it was just magic and cards. There was nothing. I don't know. It wasn't my jam.
You like dragons.
I do
and
like a
fighting.
good dragon. Not opposed to a griffin either.
What about a Gryffindor?
Don't mind them either. They could slither in.
But
I thought it was paced very slowly, and I started reading it, but had a really hard time sitting down and making time to read it, so I listened to most of it. I think I ended...
Her voice wasn't great about it.
It
either.
wasn't.
That really can make or break a
Audiobook.
yes, 100%.
So I'm going to end it with 2 shots. It was okay, but it's not worth the hangover. I did not go back for the second book, and I won't. It is dead to me.
She DNF'd it.
Well, I never started it to DNF.
She DNF'd the series.
I
Yeah,
did
she
DNF
did.
the series.
Wow.
Cut off.
Okay, I will go because I just have a similar sentiment. I teetered between no shot and 1 shot.
No shot is not an option.
It is an option. I was gonna not even give it a shot. I returned the shot to the bottle.
You gave it a sniff and you were like, no, thank you.
Yes, exactly. I am just not a fantasy lover. I think that the story was okay. I agree it was slow. I started reading it. I got through the first chapter and said, I am not going to be able to read this book. So I ended up moving to the audiobook. So I'm sorry, Rachel. This was just not my favorite.
No, it's okay. And I felt bad after I finished this book because this was my choice. And I wanted to pick a good fantasy book because I feel like there's going to be one that you like.
There will be one. I'm not
And
opposed
I was sad
to
that this was my choice. I was disappointed in myself.
And I don't know. I agree that the magic was I just struggled through. I didn't get enough to like keep me understanding what was happening most of the way. That was my struggle for this one. Not that it was awful or I blame you on it. It just wasn't my jam.
Okay.
Right.
What'd you give it?
A 0 shot.
A 1. She gave it a 1.
It's a
okay?
1 shot
I
because
gave
we
it a
don't do
0
we
shot.
don't do a 0.
I gave it
Listen to our rules, Rocks.
I gave it 1 shot, but there was no alcohol inside it.
A water
It was-
shot?
It was just
Water.
the glass.
Water shot.
Yes.
Air shot.
Yes.
I'm giving it a 2, but I feel like there are times when I give 2 shots and I'm leaning more towards a 3. This time was not one of them. I would say I'm a 2 shot, but leaning more towards a
1?
1.5.
Yeah.
I did like it because I enjoy fantasy. I did read the second book. I think the second book really rounded out the story. It provided way more insight into what the F Ione was doing and why. The story is actually kind of good once you finish it out. I think when you end it in the middle of this One Dark Window, like in the middle of the story, it's okay.
If I understand how series you're supposed to leave a cliffhanger, but the whole first book should make some sort of sense.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
that's
agree.
my beef with
And it definitely doesn't. It makes
And-
you feel like you're confused for most of the first book about what's happening. And again, the nightmare knows everything, but it's always in riddle. Like you're not getting any finite answers until you get into the second book, which is maybe why I like it more.
Maybe.
But it's still, even after reading the second book, it's not great.
And that's really kind of my gripe with most fantasy books is that you do so much work to understand that what's happening. Most of the books are like
Usually
that.
the reward is fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Normally there's a spectacular award at the end.
You end
That's
the book
just
like,
still
"What?"
to be debated.
So I see what you're saying. There's a lot of work, sure.
And I just want to read one book and be happy about
You're
it.
not
Maybe
a series girl.
That's why I
Maybe
liked
two.
One Dark Window too, was that it was only a 2-book series. It felt like that is doable. Yeah. All right. Well, that is a wrap on One Dark Window's book summary. We will be posting our book club next week. So if you had as much as fun as we did, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode coming at you every Wednesday.
Yeah, so rate and review. It helps the book nerds and the booze lovers find our show.
And you can keep the conversation going and answer all of our prompts for next week's episode by following us on our social media at Lit on the Rocks Pod on Instagram and TikTok, and on our website at literatureontherocks.com.
So until next time, may your books be long and your cocktails be strong. Cheers.
Toodaloo!
Bye.